a consultant working with the American Bar Association's Civil Rights and Social Justice section. I also own my own business. I'm CEO of Playhouse Consulting and is also a Michigan grad, so happy to be back here in my old stomping grounds. It's a pleasure to be able to work with the ABA to host this community event, this forum in which we wanted to have open conversation about the local issues that are impacting this area, and to ensure that we are, when the ABA comes into town, that we are also being committed to what it is that is happening on the ground. And so we're really excited to be able to be here today at Wayne State University at the law school. I want to thank, I know he's running around here, but Mr. Peter, he has been really a great assistance here in allowing us to be able to utilize this great space. And so my role today really is just to keep things flowing, because there are many more important people that I want you to hear from today. The most that I will do is to try to make sure that not only keep things going, but maybe educate you a little bit about some of the other things that we're trying to make sure that we're working on. So once again, on behalf of the Civil Rights and Social Justice section, and we really welcome you here today. We have what we call our Perfecting Democracy project, which is an opportunity to really engage attorneys in all the issues and on the work on the ground and working with voters and trying to make sure that they are engaged in our democratic process. And so what we're trying to do is to have these different types of conversations, but also make sure that attorneys know that they can be useful in many different ways. And so that we don't necessarily need you to work in one particular arena. We just want you to actually be leaders where you are. And so that's what we're trying to do. And we wanted to take the opportunity while we're here to have this particular conversation so that we can also bring that information to share. We are recording this. We want to make sure that we get the information out about what is happening here in the Detroit metropolitan area and Michigan generally. So without further ado, I want to bring up our host, the chair of the Civil Rights and Social Justice section, Runge, and she will be offering greetings on behalf of the section.
Thank you so much, Tanya. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here. As you said, my name is Robin Runge. I use she, her pronouns. And it's a privilege to be here at Wayne State at the law school. I have a couple of colleagues who teach here, and so they were really excited to know that we were going to be here today. As Tanya said, we had our spring business meeting here the last few days, along with the ABA's Equal Justice Conference, which draws civil rights and social justice lawyers from across the country to come together once a year. And as a part of this, we're really excited to be here and have this incredibly important discussion. I shared with Heaster before we got started that I have a personal connection to Detroit. My parents, when they first got married in 1964, this was the first place they lived, downtown Detroit. And my father was an attorney for Bobby Kennedy in the Civil Rights Division, doing voting rights work and segregation. So I have a personal fondness. My mother talks, she's 88, still with us and kicking. And she was so excited to know that this was happening today because of her special commitment and experiences here. She always remembers exactly where the building was. It's been torn down. That she feels very connected to Detroit, and it was like, that city, is amazing. So I think it's just tremendous to be here. Importantly, I want to thank our partners that made this event possible, along with Tanya, Oakland Forward, our Michigan United, the Michigan Coalition of Black Civil Participation, the NAACP, Reproductive Freedom for All of Michigan, Detroit Action, Street Democracy. There's probably more here. Michigan Legislative Black Caucus. I just really want to thank all of you. This would not be possible without your presence and your support. And then I want to give a shout out particularly to Tamika Ramsey, who's here in the beautiful blue. We've got two sisters here, beautiful blue. Our sister Melanie from our section. Great choice. From the Michigan Coalition on Black Civil Participation, and Shanita Gary at our own Wall Street, who I haven't had the privilege of meeting yet. But I just want to thank both of our sisters in particular for your support, your leadership, not just today, but always, and everything you're doing to make So, thank you. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing us to partner with you. I'm looking forward to learning today. And thank you, Tanya, for making this all happen. All right, I'm going to probably sit with y'all now because that's my safe space. Thank you. Are you good? Yep.
So I now have the privilege of introducing a longtime friend. I'm not going to tell you how long, and hoping that it doesn't show. But let's just say that we go back a couple of decades. I often say when I talk about people that I engage with and worked in this fight, I was like, oh, you knew me before marriage, you knew me before kids, you knew me before all of that stuff. And so he continues to be a powerhouse in all the work that he does. I initially was able to, had the pleasure of meeting Heaster when he was working with the NAACP and partnering on election protection programs here on the ground. Remember those long days and trying to make sure that partnering with NAA and making sure that we were getting people out and ensuring that they were protected at the ballot box. I mean, these were years ago when they were even dealing with issues of caging and people being told that they couldn't vote because they didn't have a place of residence, and there were so many things that were happening, and Heaster was right there with us, just right in arms, and he's someone who I always knew that we could call because he's always willing to be there for people. But he has always had a calling, and people know him, and when you hear him, you understand why. So, he's been with the NAACP. However, he is currently the Assistant Secretary of State for Michigan. He was appointed in January 2019, and this includes serving and champion Michigan voting rights issues in service for the Chief Election Officer, and also managing the traffic and the safety issues and making sure that issues are protected, making sure that issues for voters are protected constantly throughout the year. He's an entrepreneur, he's a founder of Heaster Wheeler Speaks, where our services include community leadership and engagement, government affairs, public speaking, and voiceover acting. As I said, he's part of many communities, including the NAACP, but he also serves as the chair he serves as chair of the Political Action Committee, Education Committee at NAACP, but also the Fannie Lou Hamer Executive Committee. And he serves as a mentor, which I really love because it means that you're really working with people every day, kids on the ground. I want to admit, because he's always somebody who wants to learn. So he's currently finishing up his degree in African American Studies at Wayne State University here. And he's a graduate of Detroit Public Schools. So let me, without further ado, introduce my friend, Heaster Wheeler.
Look at there. Thank you very much. It is a plum-pleasing pleasure to be a part of such an auspicious conversation. Let me say a special thank you to your Runge Playhouse. So I understand that you put together a big discussion trying to figure out who might round off this discussion today, and there were 20 or 30 of you sitting at a big conference table, and somebody said, well, let's go get the most handsome brother we can find.
All right.
And you guys called him and he said no. And somebody else suggested, well, how about if we go get the most handsome brother we can find? Y'all called him and he said no. Somebody else suggested maybe we get the most articulate brother we can find. You called him and he said no. So finally somebody said, what about that guy Heaster Wheeler? He talks a lot. So when you guys called me, I figured I better say yes. I had said no 3 times. So I'm happy to be here. I am Heaster Wheeler. I currently serve as senior advisor to Jocelyn Benson. She's our Secretary of State. I started as Assistant Secretary, and I dipped out for about a year to do some other political stuff. But this is a significant moment. And let me say this, I'm not a preacher, so don't get scared, but I love preachers. But somewhere in the Bible it says don't grow weary in well-doing. So we got to stay in the game. We got to stay in the game. I don't care if you're talking to 14 people or 40 people or 400 people, it all adds up. Special regards to Peter Heyman. Man, I love who you are and what you do here. You are a change agent, and I just want to encourage you to keep it up. My soon-to-be nephew-in-law, Brandon Snyder, working on the ground with Detroit Action. Good to see you, my man. Stay in the game. You never really know how you impact people. You never really know. Tamika, Kermit, good to see you guys. We've been at this for some while, right? We've been at this for some while. Of all the things that I've been privileged and able to do, the most important thing I do is mentoring. I work with ninth graders at my old high school for the last 7 years, and I can tell you the power of transformation. We typically start off with about 30 young people, and on day one I always ask, how many of you are going to college? I work in the most distressed neighborhood in the city of Detroit. Same high school where I went. It was a working middle class neighborhood, but I was there. But y'all see what happens in urban centers all across the country, right? But I ain't giving up. I ain't never gonna forget who I am, and I will never forget where I came from. And my commitment to transformation is pristine. I'm not gonna negotiate away my commitment to self-determination. I don't think we should ever apologize for being who we are. On day number one, I asked these young people, how many go to college? How many have plans to go? Maybe 2 out of 30. Then I start talking about this $1 million strategy, which is the difference between a high school education and a college education is at least $1 million during the course of your work life. You guys know that, right? So we get to week number 5 or 6, I say, how many of you are going to go to college? And I always remind them of that $1 million strategy. Now it's 10 or 12. By the time we get to week number 7 or 8, how many of you are going to go to college? Everybody raises their hand. Just because we're working with them, we're talking to them. Transformation happens, but you got to make a difference. And if whatever you do, whatever you stand for, if it does not connect to young people, it's almost irrelevant. It's called sudden death. When you die, all of your efforts are gone. You got to make the difference in the lives of young people. So that's why the work we do with Jocelyn Benson and our Secretary of State's office is so very important. Jocelyn really ain't no ordinary sister. Have you guys met her?
Yeah.
Man, she's brilliant. She used to be a big shot right here, Peter, before you came, and now you're the new big shot. But she used to be Dean of Wayne State University's law school, which is right here, and she's awesome. And I want you to meet the top lawyer for our team. Mike Grady, we just stand or wave your hand. He's modest, but that boy is smart. He's smart as all get out, so it's a pleasure to work with him. But so now we're at a moment where Michigan has moved from worst to first. Worst to first. And I'm going to put you on the spot. You know, we learn a lot of different ways, but interactivity is an absolute excellent way to learn. What are Michigan's new voting rights? We got a bunch of them. What are things we're able to do today that we could not do 5 years ago? Early voting. Who said that? Awesome, Madam Doctor. And let me just expand on that one. Early voting is a new gold standard. We spent time talking to Stacey Abrams in Georgia, and she took us on a journey. We did not know what we did not know. Who in all of America votes the least? For example, who do you know?
Young people.
Say it again.
Young people.
Young people for sure, but more specifically.
People of color.
People of color, yes, sir, but more specifically.
Black people.
Poor people.
Poor people, but more specifically, poor people, people of color, young people, but there's one slice in all of America that votes less than everybody else. And they look like you and I. Black men. Black men. So whatever you do, if it doesn't focus in some significant ways on black men, you're missing an opportunity. You're missing an opportunity. And it's all connected to the disparities in the criminal justice system. You and I live in the margins. Regardless of shirt and tie, regardless of our brilliance, regardless of the degrees we have, we know that a chance encounter with a rogue police officer right now in 15 minutes can be a death sentence. We know that. We just saw it happen in Grand Rapids.
Yep.
And it happens all across the country. 500 black men like you and I, Kermit, have been shot or killed by police since Trayvon Martin. And you wonder why black men dwell in the margins. We don't participate in a system that don't respect us, don't believe in us, don't make a difference. And the reason I'm saying that because this whole conversation is about voting rights, voting education, and voting rights. I am saying you're absolutely right. Young people, if young people voted, they could provide the margin of victory in every election. But they don't know their power. But Stacey Abrams told us that voting is not a tradition in the African American community. That's hard to believe, isn't it? It's not a tradition, but when you put it in historical perspective, what was going on in America from 1619 to 1865? Slavery. Were you voting? Everybody else was. From 1865 to 1965, Voting Rights Act, what was going on in America? Jim Crow what? Legalized segregation, second-class citizenship. You would risk your life to vote. My dad and parents are both from Mississippi. My dad tells a story about growing up in rural Mississippi. They used to have to go out to the country store, which is where the polling place was. But they had to navigate past pickup trucks with shotguns. And they had to risk their jobs or their lives. And very often they said, nope, I'm not doing that. And they just kept going and did not participate. And it was 1965. So what I'm saying to you, from 1965 to today, we've had less than 60 years of something else. And that's what you and I were talking about, Karen. Every year, every 2 years, because the rules keep changing. So 3 years ago, we had 39 pieces of voter suppression legislation pending in the Michigan legislature. In the Michigan legislature. 39 pieces. So it does matter who's elected. We got the right kind of political landscape. We squashed all of that. And now we've got new voting rights. Early voting, what else do we have that we didn't have 5 years ago?
Same-day voter registration.
Same-day voter registration. What does that mean?
They can register and vote the same day.
You can register and vote the same day, even on election day.
Yeah.
Even on election day. So I'm encouraging all of you as advocates and activists to be innovative. Make these new rules work for you. Early voting also says 9 days legally. Really, you do it for 29 days. But 9 days is the law. That includes 2 Sundays that leads up to election day. So really, I'm encouraging you to change your paradigm. So not only is 9 days of early voting important, but election day now is the last day to vote. You see the difference in the way we think? Mm-hmm. Election day is the last day to vote, so we've got to get busy 40 days prior to election day. What's another voting right? Another voting right we have relevant to absentee voting?
Any reason absentee?
Any reason, no excuse, and that starts 40 days. So we've got to drive our people to the poll. We can start counting our votes. We know where we need to go. You don't have to wait until the day of. You know where you need to go, and you can use incentives. Now you can feed people, you can give them water at the polls. All of those were, we were trying to just eliminate. Mike, did we pass the law where you can't bring guns? Did that pass?
It just passed out of House Committee.
Yes.
The Senate passed it before.
We've not even gotten that all the way across the finish line yet. There are some mean-spirited people out there that don't want to see you vote. If somebody's standing outside your polling place with an AR-14, 15, whatever it is, you used to be a thug. What is it? I got you there. I don't even know the difference between an AR-14 or 15, but I know it's something terrible. And it's designed to hurt people, right?
It looks scary.
It looks scary. But all I'm saying, all of those are forms of voter intimidation. And we've got to fight back. You ain't really in this game if you're not fighting back. Because there are too many issues. And I've been NACP, but most of my adult life people come in, how come y'all ain't do this? What y'all doing over there? And then you spend 3 or 4 minutes listening to them, then you flip the script, say, now what do you do? What initiative are you a part of? And half the folk who complain are not a part of anything.
That's right.
And too many people in our community are looking for somebody else to solve their problems. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to remind you that you really don't have power if you don't use it. And I said I'm not a preacher, but I do know the power of prayer. And after prayer, one of the most significant powers we have is what? Voting.
Yeah.
Why are so many people coming after you? Why do they want you to stay out in the margin? So drop boxes, name 1 or 2 other things. Do you know, can we register? What about 16, 17-year-olds? Y'all know the new law?
You pre-register.
You can pre-register 16, 17-year-olds. How many of you are doing mock elections? How many of you have relationships in high schools? That's what a power is. And you know our happiest customer in the Secretary of State experience? The happiest customer. Well, all of y'all are happy now because you can get in and out, right? How many of you been to the Secretary of State in the last couple of years? Y'all like that experience?
Yes.
I have constituents who say they used to take a book to the Secretary of State's office because you might be sitting there for 2 or 3 hours. Now, on average, 15, 18 minutes, less than 20. We promise 30 minutes or less. But our happiest customers is the one who gets a driver's license. At 16 or 17-year-old, that's our happiest customer. So that's a good time to engage them. What we've also learned is if a young person votes at the first or second opportunity they have, they become voters for life. If they miss that first or second opportunity, then it's people like us who spend the rest of our life chasing that voter. So you got to get them young. So you get pre-registration of 16, 17-year-olds, early voting, same-day voter registration, any reason absentee. What are some of the other new voting? You can move people to the poll. You say busing? You can move people to the poll. So we're working with a couple of faith organizations here in Detroit. Our goal is 100 churches, 100 parishioners every Sunday. Go straight from church to the early voting center. You hear what I'm saying? Those are just ideas. There are different ways we can get our people to the poll, Kermit. We've got to be innovative. What else can you do now that you could not do 5 years ago? What about?
No ID.
No, you're not stuck on that photo ID rule anymore. You can still vote. There are provisions for that. Drop boxes.
Yep.
Anybody know about drop boxes? We saw we couldn't trust the U.S. mail because of politics. So there are a lot of things you can do. So I just wanted to touch upon a few of our new voting rights, Tanya. I wanted to sort of challenge you to think a couple of other initiatives we're particularly proud of. I know we're talking about Michigan's new voting rights. For the first time in Michigan history, everybody leaving a Michigan prison will have a state ID or a driver's license. Isn't that awesome? Based on who you're like. Mike Ricky and I sat in a meeting with Jocelyn 5 years ago. She says, what great thing should we attempt if we know we could not fail? You know, and I'm a brother from Linwood, and I've come to understand that you ain't really got power if you don't use it. And I'm saying, Jocelyn, I'm concerned about the 79,000 Detroiters that don't have a driver's license because of the onerous driver responsibility fee. It's a poor people penalty. If you can't afford auto insurance in Michigan, you're penalized with a fee, which is more expensive than the auto insurance in the very first place. Today we fixed that. I'm also pleased. What's the program you work on?
Road to Restoration.
And what is that?
It is a one-on-one individual driving record review clinic where you can meet with Secretary of State staff and volunteer attorneys like myself to find out the steps to get your driver's license. But because we passed the Clean Slate to Drive laws in 2021, or passed in 2020, effective 2021, most of the sanctions were removed retroactively, and about 350,000 people were impacted, but 150,000 Michiganders were able, like 1 or 2 steps from getting their driver's license.
That's exactly right. So we estimate that we've got at least 150,000 people in Michigan who drive dirty every day right now. You got to take your children to school. You got to go to your doctor's offices. And I don't know if y'all like me, like it's an extra stress. If anything, it's an extra stressor to drive and anything's wrong. Am I right?
Yeah.
I remember my driver's license expired because at the time I couldn't afford to pay my auto insurance. Man, I was taking chances. I just didn't want to have to deal with the police. So some of us live in a different space and a different place, but I am telling you, we've got the right kind of political landscape right now. We ought to be able to get things done. 2 other things. One is driver's education. We're working aggressively, and Mike Brady's one of our leaders on that initiative. We want to restore driver's education to all public high schools. You know, they took that away some 20 plus years ago. We had some mean-spirited political leaders that said, we're going to privatize everything that state government provides. If we can give it to our friends in business, that's what they did. So poor people can't afford $500, $600, $700 for driver's training, so they wait until they're 18 and go read the book, what every driver should know, but they haven't been trained, they didn't practice, And so you got another scheme in the African American or in the poor community. I don't mean to paint with a broad brush, but people get into a car accident, they just jump out and run. That's a reality. We may not talk about it, but that's a reality. Take your chances. And if I were pulled over by police, I gotta think twice, like, do I want to deal with this or should I jump out and run? I know they don't respect me. I don't care how smart I am. You know, and I'm bilingual, by the way. I don't know if you guys have noticed. I can speak black English and I speak white English. Just depends on who I'm talking to. I'm really trilingual because I can speak Republicanism also. Especially with my dark suit moving through the legislature. Boy, I joke. Hi, Heaster. Hey, Terry. Hi, Heaster. You know, whatever it takes. The last thing, what we've learned is everywhere we go, particularly African American communities and urban centers, people don't know that your right to vote in Michigan is automatically restored if you're a returning citizen. You know that? So you got to do that, educate. You don't have to do anything. So I said a lot, but I appreciate this opportunity to just have this experience. I'm saying let's use your power. Everybody got to do something. Everybody got to do something. You should be working in your high schools or working with young people or working in your church organization or your fraternity or sorority organizations. We can make a difference. You don't have power. If you don't use it. You want to add something? Yes.
Oh, well, I just wanted to add, you might want to say, but no progressive legislature or leader has been elected without the participation of the black vote.
Thank you so very much. I really meant to put extra emphasis on that. And Peter, help me if I go too far because I love your intellectual brilliance, and Tanya. So I love everybody. So don't get scared. I don't believe there is any issue that is so sacred that we cannot find a way to talk about it. So right now we got a terrible conflict on television every day. And so some of my friends in the Arab American community, they're angry, like many of you are, and you should be, when you see life being lost. And my wife and I, we travel, we got some Arab American friends, and I love traveling with them because when we go through the airport, Tanya, they always pull them over. And they say, Mr. Wheeler, you guys just keep going. And all my Arab American friends had to take their shoes off and open up all their luggage. I'm saying, you see what we've been dealing with? That's profiling. You see what we've been dealing with?
Yeah.
But so several of my Arab American friends, they were talking publicly about the fact that they're going to withhold 140,000 votes. And they did that successfully on the February 25 primary. And that's significant. Again, you don't have power if you don't use it. And in this democracy, you should use your power, however you choose. I ain't telling you who to vote for or who not to vote for. But it begs the question, Kermit, if our Arab American friends know that they've got 140,000 votes, how many registered African American voters do we have in Michigan? I see some brilliance. I see, ooh, it's a whole row of brilliance back there. Y'all know the answer to that. How come we don't know the answer to that? Huh? I'm not putting you on the spot, but I'm going to challenge you to go do your homework. How can they tell you their power and you don't know yours? And she just reminded us, not one Democrat can win statewide without significant votes from the African American. They can't win. And that's why some of our leaders are expressing their frustration very publicly. They say, y'all only come to us 45 days before Election Day. You hear what I'm saying? But look it up. There are at least 400,000 registered African American voters here in Detroit. So you can really extrapolate. Go to the 15 urban centers across this state. And the fact that African Americans live where African Americans live, that ain't totally by choice. That's by design.
Yes.
There are places in Michigan black folk don't even live. Don't even think about living. Right? It ain't worth it as a current. Mike and I had this conversation. It's something, if I'm traveling and I got 5 days or 7 days, am I going to go north or I'm going to get on a plane and go south?
We going south.
I'm going to Jamaica. Everybody look like me. No explanation. Learn to speak a little patois. Thank you so much.
take the time and opportunity to just take advantage of your brilliance. And I wanted to give an opportunity for the audience to ask any questions that they might have while we have you here. I don't know how long you'll be able to stay, but I know that I wanted to make sure that we had that opportunity and just say thank you again for being here. We have a lot of people that are here out of town, but also many that are here in the area. So I wanted to open it up. Yes.
I have a question. Yesterday, we took a tour of Detroit.
Yes, sir.
We took a tour yesterday of Detroit and heard some statistics that were troubling to me. One was that kind of the city regional divide
Yes, sir.
between the black community and the white community. Detroit is, I think, 90% African American. The suburbs are pretty much white, and you don't have a lot of regional transportational support. Could you speak to some of those tensions and how that's being resolved or responded to?
Well, we've got some good leaders who are having good conversations with each other, but we're not honest. We're not honest. The fact that we can't get a transportation system that connects us, that's rooted in race. Much of our American experience is rooted in race, right? And very often people say that Detroit is the most segregated. But guess what? Livonia, for example, is more white than Detroit is black. But nobody ever says Livonia is the most segregated. So they blame segregation on black people. You hear what I'm saying? Yeah, Livonia is a suburb. So there are some important conversations. We've made a lot of progress. But people who don't learn to talk well with each other will never learn to work well with each other. We've got to be able to talk about race. Most of the solutions to racism come from white people, not us. You're never going to be surprised to hear what I have to say about a racial issue, but you will be pleasantly surprised to hear what a white leader has to say about racism. So when white people speak up, I'm reading a book right now, it's entitled The False White Gospel. I urge you guys to go read it. Man, he hits it right on the nail. Because what he says is that if you believe in the Bible, and the Bible says we're all created equal, why do you live this supremacy doctrine? Why do you assume you're better than others? You follow me? So we're having some good conversation. We've got a mayor today who just is a brilliant student. Happens to be white. Y'all, Tanya did the same thing, didn't you? Oh, go ahead, brother. I'll stop right there. But layers of stuff, man. We made a lot of progress. So people can live pretty much where they want to live. You're probably going to be met with a little bit of hostility, but schools are slow to change. Police departments and fire departments are slow to change. You follow me? If you don't get progressive leaders who recognize that this democracy is really not democracy unless democracy works for everybody. You hear what I'm saying? So we're having some important conversation. Mike, you want to add to that? Oh, I just put you on the spot. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, so Marcus Kelly, Kelly and Tanya.
My man. There's two of y'all in here now. We're almost outnumbered.
Yeah, I represent the Justice Impacted community. And,
Which pack?
Justice Impacted.
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
Right now in Michigan, we have 2.8 million people that's Justice Impacted. What are we doing? I look at that as a voters block. So what are your ideas and thoughts on how bring that vote block?
Yeah, so we got, one of the things I mentioned earlier is the fact that today, for the first time in Michigan history, because of our leadership and Jocelyn Benson and many of us on our team, all 8,000 returning citizens will have a driver's license or a state ID for the very first time. You hear what I'm saying? And anytime you have any interaction with the Secretary of State's office, you're automatically registered to vote. Or your voter registration status is updated. You hear what I'm saying? And I also mentioned the fact that we're educating everywhere we go to remind people that returning citizens automatically have the right to vote here in Michigan. So those are conversations I think we need your help. Help us get to that community and remind them. And very often, if you've been denied for a bunch of years, you're a little more excited, or ought to be a little more anxious. I got one dear friend who was just as impacted, and then they were walking around with some other politician telling me, I'm going to vote for the other guy. I ain't gonna say his name, but y'all can figure out both names I'm talking about. What a tragedy. What a tragedy. What a tragedy. I think you have an extra obligation, especially when the light goes on in your heart. You have an extra obligation to commit to the greater good over self-service. Yes, sir. Anything else you guys do?
Thank you so much for everything that you shared with us here today. I'm Georgia Cole, Eugenia Georgia Cole, and we work with we work in advocating for domestic violence and victims of violence. So in addition to that, you were speaking about the returning citizens and going into the prisons and speaking and educating them. Can you speak to those that are in the domestic violence realm and what we can do more, because there's a lot of fear already embedded there, and we're losing out on a lot of that area too.
Yeah, that's I worked for Black Family Development for a couple of years, and I didn't know what I didn't know about. We call it DV, and I used to sit with some of the counselors, and they would describe their caseload, and they would say DV meaning this person, or usually a woman, was a victim, and the sad things, the mad things, the crazy things that they were subject to. It's inhumane stuff. But then there was also another acronym that we used. It's like escape plan.
Oh yeah.
You know,
safety plan.
A safety plan. That's what it was. So, first of all, if you're in I got a bunch of nieces and nephews, and I tend to love everybody, but I love women who are a little heavier than others, because all my sisters and nieces are hefty, and I don't want anybody to mistreat them. So I love hefty women, but my point is, the reason I say that is to say that whatever it takes, you should not live beneath your privilege. I don't care what you look like or what your situation is, and sometimes women think this is the best I can do. So I tell my nieces all the time, if they hit me one time, if they threaten to hit you, you got to get out of that situation. So I mean, so we need more counseling. We need more escape situations. You got to use your power. You got to get to the polling place. And people care about the presidential election, for example. And we get 50 to maybe 55% voter turnout in the presidential, but most of the political power that affects your day-to-day life is at the local level.
Yeah.
You know, it's who sits on the school board, right? Who sits on the city council, who sits on your various commission, and there are a bunch of resources that are available, but you got to show up. And then I learned years ago from what's a brilliant scholar. He taught us how to organize. Conjunfu. You remember, what's his name, Joanza? You old enough, brother, you know what I'm talking about. But when he said, so we got to organize, you got to go to 2 or 3 things every month. First of all, you can't just wait for stuff to come to you. You ought to have a block club. If you got children, you ought to be involved with their parent-teacher organization. You got to go to stuff. I said I ain't no preacher, but I am an advocate for church, because I see the impact it has in the lives. And furthermore, I think church is the one institution African Americans absolutely own and control.
That's right.
And politicians understand that. That's why they keep coming. Right, Tanya? They keep coming. You get closer to your election day, sometimes, you know, traditionally black churches, the closer you get to election day, it might be as many whites in there as there are blacks.
Yeah.
And you know, Sunday mornings, 11 o'clock is the most segregated hour of the week, right? We worship differently, but I'm saying use your power. And I think DV is a reflection of a sense of powerlessness, a sense of hopelessness. So we need as many interventions as are humanly possible. And there are so many good people doing good things, making resources available, helping people build their self-esteem. So that's a part of it. That's not the whole solution.
Yeah.
But thanks for that question. Mike Grady?
Forgive me. Thank you for the work you do. The one thing I was going to add on is the address confidentiality program is something that was enacted under, with Governor Whitmer and this legislature,
Yes, okay.
and that our office has been implementing with the Attorney General's office. So it's not just for people who are victims of domestic violence, but that's the primary group that are eligible to use that.
Yeah.
And among other things, if someone makes a request for someone's voting record or someone's, there are various ways where someone can like FOIA for the qualified voter file, whatever else, and get your name, get your address. That's how you get mail from politicians that you never signed up for, right? Like, so if so, there's a way where we can take an address of somebody who applies. Many of the folks that you work with would undoubtedly be eligible for that, and then we
redact it.
yeah, or like they actually put the attorney general's address, not her home address, the office. And so then if somebody wants to make a request, it kind of goes through them as a protection. So anyways, it's a small step, it's an important one, and it's one that we definitely need to build on as well. Just wanted to speak to that. So.
And Mike is our conduit to the Attorney General office.
Okay.
And give you an example. Mike told me I didn't even understand this. When I first started 5 years ago, my email was WheelerH1 at Michigan.gov. And then I left and came back, and I couldn't get. Oh no, I started off as Wheeler H2 because there's another Wheeler who wouldn't get that email up. So I started off as Wheeler H2. And I came back and I'm saying, okay, I'll take the same email. And then Mike says, nope, your email has so many FOIAs against it, we can't release it yet. So now I'm Wheeler H3. So I'm saying, we've been subject to so many lawsuits, so many FOIA requests. There's so many mean-spirited people out there that are coming after us. And I wish I had my work phone. I got threatening messages People are mad at us because we're committed to democracy and fairness. You know, people protested outside the Secretary's house a few years ago on a Saturday night in Detroit. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to lift up, I'm a fellow traveler. I've been advocating for survivors of violence for 30 years.
Thank you.
And I just want to thank you for your work in the community, but I want to lift up some of the tremendous things that the Secretary of State's office has done that makes it possible now for survivors to vote. I've done voting rights campaigns with survivors over the years, targeting battered women's shelters, and the fear that took, if you could only vote on the day,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It was a place they could find you. And so we really struggled with this. And so now that you can vote over a longer period of time, you can absentee vote.
Yeah.
This is a reason
Yeah.
to absentee vote.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lifting that up in that community,
Yeah.
that is a disenfranchised community.
Yes.
They deserve agency.
Yes.
And they have agency.
Yes.
And this is another, I just want to thank you for your leadership,
Yeah.
because this is a group of people who historically is afraid to vote,
Yes.
too.
Yes.
See, I'm glad you're able to add to that. That's especially significant. You can start 40 days early and use your power, and now early voting, no excuse absentee voting, same day voter registration. If you can't convince a person to get to the poll and get registered early, you have up until election day. There are a lot of new benefits to these rights. What are you going to say?
Well,
Can you please tell me the name of your program again?
Yes, it's the address confidentiality program.
So I think I see one more question here, and then we're gonna give Heaster this time.
Hey, again, thank you, Heaster, for what you do. Thank all you guys for what you do. I am a student at Wayne State. I'm also a returning citizen after 25 years. Love incarceration. But now that I'm here on campus, I am involved in a student organization called Time. And what we do is we help facilitate returning citizens into the college experience.
That's awesome.
One of the biggest barriers that I see in the justice impacted, prison impacted community
Yes, sir.
is education.
Yes, sir.
How can we get more people
Yeah.
that got lived experiences from that place to belong on campus and take it to another level?
Yeah, I appreciate you. Part of the reason I'm finishing another degree right now at Wayne State, some years ago I decided I was going to take every African American studies class at Wayne State University over. So I've just about completed them all. I've got 2 more now. I have a degree again at Wayne State. But my point is, I think there's some 25,000 students here at Wayne State. You know, roughly, yeah, but I think everybody should take, first of all, I think that all of us are lifelong learners, whether we consciously acknowledge it or not. But I think there's a benefit to formal study. Like, my biggest challenge in going to class is when I walk in, they assume I'm the professor. But I love the interaction. I love the conversation. Your life is richer if you just figure out some things. And one of them is how to think. I think we need more students in Detroit taking urban studies, global studies, African American studies courses. It prepares you for a whole bunch of stuff. And if you're a returning citizen, I don't know how disciplined you were inside the facility. You know, I would think you read a book a month or something. I don't know. But I think you certainly, just like you should champion your voting rights, you should champion academic excellence. Because it helps when you learn to think that. It helps. And I challenge these ninth graders, like, if you don't know how to think, somebody else is going to be telling you what to do. You know what I'm saying? And I don't care what you get your degree in. What I've learned is, once you graduate, ain't nobody really going to ask you what college did you go to. They ain't going to ask you what your degree in. You follow me? They're just going to ask, did you go to college? You know, so I'm an advocate for Leon Benson.
There's a lot of barriers to get into school as a returning citizen. There's a lot of barriers.
Well,
Financial.
there's a barrier breaker right here. He knows how to fix things. And they want you on campus. I don't know what the barriers are, but you've got to be an advocate. You follow me? You've got to be the advocate. I would think they want you on campus.
That's why we tie mine.
Good for you. All right.
Well, if I can add, actually, is this on? No, it isn't this on now. If I can add, actually, let's follow up, because that's why we're here. The American Bar Association Civil Rights Social Justice Section is here to help support you and others in what you're trying to do, exactly what you're talking about, and making sure that we're able to participate fully in this democracy. That's what perfecting democracy is about. That's why we have Heaster here, and that's why I'm here. That's why Robin here is the chair. I'm going to lift up all of our staff. I see Allie, who's just, doing a wonderful job being the videographer today, and Paula, who is everybody. So please get in contact with us, because I hear what you're saying. There are a lot of barriers. I've actually worked on this issue a lot and worked with a lot of communities. And so I understand, I mean, even in the federal system, I think there's about 79 different prohibitions after you've been incarcerated. So, and that's just on federal. I don't quote me on that, it's on video, but there's a lot of them. But the point is that I know that there's a lot of things that we want to help, and that's what, we've got attorneys here. And it doesn't just have to be attorneys, but advocates that can actually help support and navigate through the system and help you to understand, because there are actually websites, there are those things that we can work through to determine and say, okay, have you done this? What's this? What about in this particular state? What do you have to what do you have to do in order to ensure that you can get the certain, make sure you can restore all the rights that you should have. So I just want to offer that on behalf of the ABA. I also want to offer that. One thing I didn't mention, who's also a sponsor of the National Bar Association, or the chair of the Civil Rights Law Section. Black lawyers and judges. Juan Thomas is a former president of the National Bar Association.
I knew he was something.
Yeah, so talk to him, that guy right there. Talk to him. And so we all want to be supportive, and we want to help and make sure. But on behalf of all of us, on behalf of Robin, who is the chair, and all of the members here of the ABA and the Civil Rights and Social Justice Section, thank you, Heaster, for being here today. We really appreciate you taking the time out on this Mother's Day weekend on this Saturday. And we hope that you will continue to be in touch with us and stay with us. And so we look forward to continued engagement. Please. What I want to do is just give you all the run of how we're going to do things. We're going to take a small break. If you have not food, I'm going to give you this opportunity to get food. There's a lot of food out there. Eat it. Take some with you. Make sure you get some food. So we're going to take about a 15-minute break to go ahead and do that. And we're going to come back in here, and we're going to have the rest of the panel, a further panel conversation with our advocates here from Open Forward, from Detroit Action, the Michigan Coalition on Black Civil Participation, and moderate that and try to make sure that we actually have an active discussion about a lot of the other issues that are going on. Robin, did you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to say that I just so appreciate you and your leadership and your presence here to echo
what Tanya said. And I just wanted to say, we have several actually members of the leadership of the section here, of the section of civil rights and social justice. I'm not gonna make y'all stand. And Leon just stepped out. Okay, so if y'all can just raise your hand so people can see you and during lunch maybe approach you. Our colleague Leon, who just stepped out. But I just want to thank them for their leadership on this issue and for being here. So I look forward to the continued
Tanya,
conversation.
let me acknowledge our Director of Public Engagement
Oh, yes.
for the Secretary of State's office. Neva Savillas is here. Raise your hand, Neva. She's a bad sister too. And she's got these community conversations, among other things, happening in 12, 15 communities across the state. So we're moving up and down that I-75 corridor pretty aggressively. We're going across I-94 and across I-96, and she's our leader. She also manages our mobile unit. For the first time in Michigan history, we take the Secretary of State services to the people. And how many do we have?
7.
We got 7, and 2 of them are dedicated to Detroit or Wayne County. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So she's an awesome sister. I think her parents are from Haiti.
They are.
Toussaint Louverture is one of my heroes because he ran them racist slaveholders out. I just love brothers like that.
So
I'm done. Thank you.
we're kind of